Well, hey everybody, Eric Songer here with you, and it's the latest episode of Second Floor Therapy. Thank you for joining me. Every week I do a podcast on middle school education, specifically music education, and I've been doing this all summer here, the summer of 2018. And when we get back to the school year, I'll go back to our What's Happening in the Chaska Middle School West Band Department weekly podcast. But it's really been fun addressing some topics and getting some feedback from all of you. So thank you for listening. And today is our topic is failure. Interesting topic, right? Failure. It doesn't sound like a very positive podcast, but it could be nothing further from that. It is very positive because I just want to talk a little bit about a couple stories in my life with failure. First of all, I remember when I was in college, we would audition to perform in summer music groups, and this would often be at amusement parks. And one of my first couple summers, I performed in a group called the Kids from Wisconsin, which was a touring um, show choir that went across the state of Minnesota, or sorry, Wisconsin, and played shows in different cities every night. And both of those summers that I did Kids from Wisconsin, I had also auditioned for Valley Fair Amusement Park up here in Minneapolis. And I had also auditioned for Disney World and did not get into either one of those. And I continued to audition for those. My third summer after college, I went up and did an amusement park up in upstate New York, which was wonderful. And but again, got said no to by the other two places. And then my fourth year, I finally got into Valley Fair, so I finally overcame that hurdle and ended up doing Valley Fair my last three summers of college. Yes, I went to college for 6 years, no judging. And so, but I never got into Disney. In fact, I auditioned all 6 summers I was doing my undergrad. First three summers, flat out no. The fourth and fifth summer, I actually got alternates, and I was like, oh, I might get in. And then my sixth summer, I actually went back to just flat out not getting it. So I got worse. So extreme disappointment, but at the same time, huge learning experience every time I did it. And it helped me audition to get into things like the amusement park in New York and then Valley Fair and many other auditions I did in college and other opportunities I've had to audition. So, and the fact that I didn't get in to Disney is it disappointing? Yeah, I wish I would have been able to do that. But at the same time, I've had a number of really great experiences, and I'm very happy that I got to do Valley Fair because that has led to so many fun times and so many other great experiences I've had the past 20 years since working there. So it was all good. It was all good, and I don't regret a moment of the things I got to go through doing that. Another story similar is an audition I once did for the Minnesota Orchestra. This was right near the end of my undergrad, and there was a position for a substitute trombone player, which basically would be coming into play a handful of times when they needed more than the three trombones that are in the orchestra. And so I prepared very hard for the audition. And let's be honest here. I was pretty sure I wasn't going to make it, but at the same time, I wanted to really I wanted to have the experience, and I wanted to go in and make a good showing, and not be laughed off of the audition stage, so to speak. So I went in, and it was I played for three people: the director of the orchestra at the time, A.G. Oe, and the principal trombone player and another gentleman. And I played my pieces, my excerpts, and I thought they went pretty well. I really was happy with how I did. And I got done, and I didn't really know if they were going to say anything, but I figured they'd probably say something. I mean, I knew the director and the principal trombone player were really nice guys. And they just kind of looked at me, and it felt like forever, but it's just a few seconds. And finally, AGOE just says, "Nice tie, thank you." So that was a little discouraging. To that's I prepared this music, spent hours on it, and all I got was "nice tie." So frustrating experience in that sense. But at the same time, as I look back now, I auditioned for the Minnesota Orchestra, and I put out a good performance. I didn't get laughed off. Some might say the comment "nice tie" was the equivalent of a laugh, but at the same time, I think I think it was a great experience, and I learned a lot, and I have this story forever. And I've gotten to know people in the orchestra now. They're great people. I've really I've had a chance to have them come out and do clinics at Chaska Middle School West. I've gotten to play with a few of them on occasion, and it's just a really cool uh, bunch of people. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for the members of the Minnesota Orchestra or any of the professional orchestras in this country and around the world. It's quite an honor to get in there. And it was just an honor to go and audition and to understand kind of what it takes to even begin to start thinking about being in a group at that level. So anyway, a couple of my stories, and as a musician and as an educator, we go through these things. You know, educators, we have to um, obviously interview and apply to get our teaching jobs, and we a lot of times I apply for grants that I don't get. I apply to speak at conferences that I don't get, and it's frustrating. But at the same time, you learn every time I write a grant that doesn't work. You know, you learn maybe what not to do, or you learn that that particular kind of grant is not the kind of foundation that's going to sponsor our program. Conferences, you know, I that's the latest thing. You know, it's great to get accepted, and I've been able to do some really cool conferences, speaking at Association of Popular Music Education National Conference the last 3 years, and in Boston and Denver and Nashville, and a couple years ago speaking at the National Music Education Convention down in Dallas. Doing many things here in Minnesota, speaking at many universities here in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. It's really been an honor to do that. But at the same time, when you get said no to, it is frustrating. And at the same time, you learn from that. You don't beat yourself up about it. You might beat yourself up for about 10 seconds, and then you're like, all right, let's move on. We're going to try it again. We're not going to stop trying. So as a music educator and a middle school teacher, um, I see this all the time, and it's one thing for me talking about when I was in college, and now being somebody in their 40s and lived a lot of life. It's a lot easier to handle failure and rejection. When you're 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, it's a lot harder, and it's really hard when it's something you're passionate about and when it's something you pour your heart and soul into. And whether that be an academic subject like music, or another subject, a sport that you play, an activity that you do, even in social circles, wanting to be friends with somebody, wanting to date somebody, you know, there those are hard things when you're a middle school student. And I think as teachers and as parents, it is our role to obviously support these children and make sure that they know that we're on their side, that we want them to succeed, that we want them to do well, we want them to be happy. But at the same time, I think it's important for students to deal with failure and to learn how to persevere, learn how to pick yourself up, and learn how to learn from it. What could you have done differently? What could you do better? What could you do to have more success in whatever you failed at? um, and or sometimes it's knowing that maybe this is not the path for you right now. Sometimes that's how failure can work. It's sometimes like, okay, I'm trying to knock down this door and it's just not budging, and I need to go a different direction. So sometimes it's that, and sometimes it's hard to know if it's that, or if you need to keep knocking and you need to keep, I'm gonna go through this is my path, and I just need a little bit more of something or another to get through this stage. So it's hard to know sometimes which one it is. So I think that sometimes, again, as parents and as teachers, we need to support kids through that. And at the same time, I think that it's not good or healthy for us to solve those problems. We all need to learn how to face failure in the face and then know how we are going to react and how are we going to deal with that. If somebody's always bailing us out and picking us back up and figuring out a way to get us to that next step without us actually having to do it, that's not good because that's not how life is always going to be. So, kids, students, if you're watching this, you know, I want to help you as much as I can, but I also want to see how you deal with failure, and I want to help you deal with failure and help you through that process. Um, I'm not going to solve it all for you, but I'm going to help pick you up. I'll help you kind of realize how to do that yourself. Again, I'm not going to pick you up, but I want to give you some guidance on how to do that. So, because it's so important. I mean, the people who are really successful in this world, again, when I to use the Minnesota Orchestra example again, I have friends who play in that group. I have friends who play in other symphony orchestras. I have friends who play on Broadway. I have friends who are nationally touring musicians, former students who are national touring musicians and studio musicians. And, you know, they have persevered and they've been thrown to the ground many times in that journey, and it's all about just figuring out how to get through that thing. And it's sometimes you come up with a way to do that you're like, okay, when this door is closed, here's how I deal with it. And that maybe usually works for you. Other times, it's just knowing that maybe there isn't a usual way of dealing with the failure, but you're not going to let it overcome you. And you're going to find that way to pick yourself back up. And just having that characteristic, that mental state of I can do this. Um, I just look at some of my friends who are doing those things, and it's incredible. Some of the things that people have had to go through. So anyway, I think that's cool. And when you think about heroes, people that we consider our heroes, I think about people who have had to fight for what they've gotten. People who maybe aren't the most naturally gifted at what they do. People that had maybe some strikes against them, maybe a poor family background, not a lot of money, maybe some discrimination, maybe any of those kinds of things, and found their way to bust through that. Um, Maybe even some people who brought on some things themselves through addiction or through a negative attitude, poor work ethic, whatever it may be, and realizing that they had to overcome that in order to reach their goals. So, one of my favorite lines, I love the National Treasure movies. I wish they would make a third one really badly, and the more they take time to not do it, I think the less the possibility is. But in the first movie, they say, Thomas Edison found 1,000. I guess I can't remember the number, but found 1,000 ways to not invent the light bulb, and all he needed to do was find one way to do it. So, and that's a true story about him. He experimented many ways to try to make that work, and every time he failed, he learned how not to do it. So he learned not to do it exactly that way again. And, so he just kept trying and learned from his failures till he finally found a way to do it. And that's kind of how you have to approach things in life. Again, whether it's a class, an activity, a sport, a social situation, uh, you just have to kind of learn from your experiences. And sometimes you succeed and sometimes you fail. And whichever one it is, you have to learn how to go on from that, and how take something away. So, again, when I apply for a grant and I get a grant, oh my goodness, I keep every single answer from that grant. And then when I have another grant and I see a question that's the same or very similar, I'll basically just copy and paste that answer because I'm like, this worked. This worked. I'm going to use it again. Now, it isn't 100% guarantee it's going to work the next time, but hey, that works. So, find those things that you're doing right to help you succeed. So, and the last thing I want to just say too is none of us in life are failures as human beings, and a lot of us fail a lot of times at things we do, and when that happens, we need to figure out again why that is, and maybe we're just we're putting the dreams way further ahead of where they need to be. We need to step back a little bit and say, okay, let's just accomplish something simpler because we're not ready for this yet. Let's do this. And we need to remember that life is not a race. We're all on our own journey. I'm on this path, you're on that path. Our paths will come together sometimes and we'll enjoy that time together, but then we'll go apart again, and we're not all going towards a finish line. So you might want to have this high and lofty goal to be like your friend who just has the ability to do something really well, and you're not quite ready for that yet. So you need to take that next step that's in your journey. And so sometimes it's just evaluating, your dreams and your goals and where you are now, and just make sure that you're being realistic with what you want to do, and then just be okay with what you need to do to get there. You got time. You got time. And don't let anyone tell you you can't do something. If you really want to do something, go for it. At the same time, if a lot of people you really respect, your best friends, your parents, say, that whole thing about you wanting to fly to Neptune someday, maybe we should just start with taking a book and start researching what it takes to be an astronaut or something. Let's just start there. And we'll take it from there. So you know, be realistic. Don't let anyone tell you you can't do what you want to do, but also take people's advice who look out for you and who really love you. So um, and I'll always go to people who you respect to help you through stuff, especially when you feel like you're experiencing failure after failure, because there are people here to pick you up. So, all right, well, that was great. That was a really fun talk about failure and kind of how to get your way through that, and um, hopefully, as I'm failing to get my soundtrack going here, hopefully that will help you all. So I'll be back again next week with another great topic here on Second Floor Therapy. Thanks for joining me and have a great week.